Hello, my name's Kirsty and I'm an occupational therapist at the RUH. My colleague Katie's going to be helping today and is going to be moving the slides on. So next slide, please, Katie. We're going to be talking about managing cancer-related fatigue. So covering what cancer-related fatigue is, some tips for managing fatigue, and how to get support if that's something that you need. Next slide, please, Katie. So as I said, I'm an occupational therapist in the Cancer Rehab Team. I'm based over in the Brownsword building, along with Sophie-Anne Escott, who's our prehab cancer support worker. Dave White is the cancer support occupational therapist in the Macmillan Wellbeing Hub in the Dyson building. And all of us would potentially be people who could help you with your fatigue. There will be other people in the team, like your clinical nurse specialists and the cancer support workers associated with your team, who may also be able to help. So there will be some contact information at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please, Katie. This is a definition of cancer-related fatigue: a persistent, distressing, subjective sense of physical, emotional, and/or cognitive tiredness or exhaustion related to cancer or cancer treatment that is not proportional to recent activity and interferes with usual functioning. That's a very wordy definition, but it has all the important bits in there. So it's not just a physical fatigue. That might be the easiest thing to see, but often it goes alongside or is sometimes less significant than emotional or cognitive fatigue. So it could be, for instance, that your concentration is changed, or your ability to remember things, or that you find that you get tearful more quickly or can't deal with frustration as much. So all of these things are part of fatigue and important things to notice and be aware of. It also is the case that fatigue is not the same for everybody. And what's important is how it's affecting you. So if it's stopping you from being able to do the things that you want or need to be able to do, then it's important and we want to know about it and to support you to manage it. If you're just not able to do things that usually you'd be able to do, that's when we want to have a discussion about the fatigue. Next slide, please, Katie. So on this slide, you can see that there are lots of reasons why you might be fatigued. It's often the case that there's more than one reason. It might be due to the cancer itself. It might be due to the cancer treatment that you've had, for instance, chemotherapy or radiotherapy or surgery. It might be due to the symptoms and side effects like pain or lack of appetite. It might also be that it's something unrelated to fatigue that's contributing to unrelated to cancer that's contributing to the fatigue. So it might be that something like having low levels of B12 or being anemic is affecting your energy. So it's always important to talk to your medical team or your GP and find out if they can investigate and make sure that there's nothing else going on. Because if you do have something like anemia or low B12 levels, that's something that can be treated, and it might not get rid of the fatigue completely, but it might make a big difference. So it's definitely worth talking to your medical team if you're experiencing fatigue. Next slide, please, Katie. One of the things that can be really significant here is how well you can sleep, because sleeping is the thing that helps you to charge up overnight. We often talk about people having a battery capacity in terms of their energy. So if you can sleep well, you can charge up fully. If you can't sleep well, you may not get all the way to the maximum energy that you can have. So sleep's very important to consider. If you are experiencing difficulty falling asleep, so you're taking more than 20 minutes to fall asleep, you're waking several times a night and you can't get back to sleep within 20 minutes, you're waking early and you're not able to get back to sleep, or you're feeling tired and lethargic even though you have slept, then it's important to tell us about it and maybe just to look at the resources that we have on our website, or we will have another video about sleep which you'll be able to access. So let us know if you're having difficulties with sleep. Next slide, please, Katie. And this is a diagram which we use to try and help us to understand whether your fatigue is something that's affecting you in a way that requires some support. So if you're in the green side, so you can do everything that you normally do, or almost everything that you normally do, then we'd advise that you try to keep going in your usual way and doing your normal levels of activity and physical activity. If you're more towards the orange and red, then we'll want to investigate further. So that could be speaking to your cancer nurse specialist or cancer support worker, particularly if it's something like pain or having to get up in the night to go to the toilet lots of times, because there may be things that can help medically to manage those symptoms. If you've talked to your cancer nurse specialist or your cancer support worker and they feel that it would be useful, you can be referred for physiotherapy and occupational therapy support from the Cancer Rehab Team. Next slide, please, Katie. So I mentioned before that we sometimes use this metaphor of a battery to help us think about energy. So prior to having cancer and cancer treatment, you may have had this much in your battery, and then because your body is having to deal with different symptoms or the effects of treatment, a chunk of that energy will be taken by your body to recover or to manage those symptoms, and so you'll be left with less. On top of that, some of that capacity might be drained away by stress, or you may not have been able to fully charge up because of loss of appetite or disturbed sleep. So we want to maximize what you've got in your battery. So for instance, that might mean talking to the dietitian or talking to your clinical nurse specialist about things that can help you get enough energy from food and nutrition. And then we want to help you work out how you use the energy that you've got. So a lot of people when they're fatigued tend to just keep going, just push through until there's nothing left and their body makes them stop. If you do that, then it's really quite difficult to charge yourself back up again. So what we want to do is help people to use a bit of energy and then do the equivalent of plugging themselves into a charger and boosting themselves up a bit and then using a bit more energy. So if you feel that you're kind of losing all your energy, hitting a wall, feeling like somebody's pulled the plug, or that your fatigue is really unpredictable, then it could be useful to talk to us and help work out what's in your battery and how you use it. Next slide, please, Katie. One of the ways that you can do that is by keeping a diary. Macmillan have a booklet about managing fatigue that you can find online, or that you can pick up a hard copy of from the Macmillan Wellbeing Hub in the Dyson Centre. And what you can do with the diary is record what you do in the morning, afternoon and evening, how tired you are. You can give yourself a rating out of 5, how fatigued you are. You can record the other things that might be happening that could affect that, such as whether you had chemotherapy or whether you did something physical. And that can help you to start to work out what kind of things use your battery up quickly, what kind of things use it but more slowly, and whether there's anything that's like plugging you into a charger and boosting you up. And it can also help you to work out how many things you can do in a day without running the battery flat. Next slide, please, Katie. What we're trying to avoid is something called booming and busting. And it's something that we might all do. We might all know that we haven't really got enough energy to, for example, attend that family birthday party, but it's really important. So we're going to do it anyway. And we know we'll kind of pay for it the next day, but we'll plan that we'll just have a day where we're really quiet to recover. And that's okay if you do it once in a while. But if you're doing it all the time, you can slip into this pattern of booming and busting, and it can become unhelpful. So what tends to happen is people maybe have a good day. Maybe it's a day when they're having steroids that are really helping with treatment. Maybe it's a day that they feel they have to do something because they're at work. Maybe it's because people feel better in the morning, so they push through and they try to get everything done. So they try to do everything on the list. And it might be that you've grown up with sayings like no pain, no gain, or you just worry that if you sit down, you won't get up again. So you just want to keep going and finish a job. And that obviously, for a lot of us, just feels normal. If you start something, you want to finish it. So you keep going until maybe your body makes you stop. And then you realize you've done too much and you have to rest. And that period when you have to rest can be really frustrating. You might feel really low, might feel really worrying that you're in that situation. And you might then not be able to consistently do physical activity or exercise. So you have to stop until you get some more energy back, and then the cycle can start all over again. Next slide, please, Katie. So over time, what we find is this booming and busting can mean that we lose capacity, physical, mental, and emotional. And it also means that things are really unpredictable. If you don't know where you're going to be on that curvy line, it's really hard when someone asks you if you want to go out for a coffee to know whether you will be able to do that on Thursday or not, because you don't know where you're going to be on that curve. What we're aiming to do is to level everything out. So that will mean not pushing through and overdoing it, which is hard because it can feel really good when you're really busy and you're doing more. But hopefully what it also means is you don't have those dips, those troughs where you can't do anything at all. And then what we're aiming for is that gradually over time you can do a little bit more and increase what you're able to do. Next slide, please, Katie. The way that we suggest trying to do this is by using these 4 Ps: prioritizing, planning, pacing, and giving yourself permission to do all of the above. So when you're prioritizing, think, do I need or want to do this? Does it need to be me? And is it something I need or want to do? If you feel like, well, I should do that, or I've always done that, or my mum or my dad did it that way, then just pause and decide, okay, but do I need or want to do it? And then think about whether you need to do it today, do it now, whether you need to do it alone or whether you can get some help to do it, whether you can do it differently. So that might mean making choices you wouldn't normally make, but it's about thinking, what's the most important part of this? If I'm going shopping, can actually somebody else choose all the tins, but actually I want to choose the fresh vegetables? Decide what is the most important bit and prioritize that. And try really hard not to just squeeze in extra jobs. I met someone when I started working in fatigue who said they were a terrible juster. They just did this and they just did that. And at the end of the day, the just had all added up to a whole heap of stuff. So just try to watch out for just adding in extra jobs along the way. Next slide, please, Katie. And then you want to pace yourself and plan how you do things. So planning is putting different tasks into different bits of the day and spreading them across the week. And pacing is breaking things up into chunks. So stopping before your body tells you to and not pushing through. Most of us will stop if our body makes us, but our body only really tells us when we've already overdone it. A bit like my mobile phone, which will only tell me that the battery's nearly flat at the point that it's going to be shutting off different functions. So we can learn from our own personal experience how long we can do something for without getting tired, and then plan to stop before we get to that point. It's also helpful to mix activities up. So maybe to do something physical, like going for a walk if you're able to, and then follow that up with something that requires more mental energy, like reading or filling out a form. And it's important to remember that pacing is not giving in. It's accepting that at the moment you've got less energy and finding new ways to do things. And that can be difficult. Stopping halfway through mowing the lawn and sitting down and having a drink of water requires a choice, and it requires some kind of mental commitment. So it's certainly not the easy option. Often the option that's easier in the moment is just to push through and finish something, but then you pay for it afterwards. So if you manage to pace, then really do give yourself a pat on the back, because it isn't easy and it doesn't necessarily come naturally, but hopefully it's something that's going to give you back more control over your energy. Next slide, please, Katie. We know that physical activity can help to reduce fatigue. It can also help to improve sleep. It can help regulate appetite. But at various points, you may not be able to do the same amount of physical activity that you did before. If you're going through treatment, there may be days when you know you've got a lot less energy and you have to pare things back and expect a different amount of yourself. It's really important to start from where you are. So rather than aiming to do 150 minutes of moderate physical activity a week, which is what we should all be aiming for ultimately, if you're not doing anything at all and you try to do that, then you are going to boom and bust. So it's best to kind of take in some information about what you're doing. That might be using a step counter on your phone, for example, or using a fatigue diary to work out how much activity you're doing. Maybe work that out over the course of a week if you're in a situation where your energy is quite stable, and then add it all up, divide by 7, and then you've got something to start from, how many steps you're going to aim to do in a particular day. And when we talk about moderate physical activity, we're talking about that green 4 to 6 section there. Moderate activity, breathing heavily, can hold short conversation, still somewhat comfortable, but becoming noticeably more challenging. So you'd be able to talk, but you probably wouldn't be able to sing. And you'd know that you were doing something. And that's what we're aiming for. And that'll be different for everybody, and probably different for you, for example, after treatment than it was before treatment. That's okay. We're just aiming for what's moderate activity now. So try and do some activity, and it doesn't matter whether that's doing something like going to a gym or doing some gardening. Your body doesn't care as long as you're moving, but don't exercise on a flat battery. Next slide, please, Katie. It can be useful to have some other ways of explaining or thinking about fatigue. So we've got a couple of examples here. Some people find it useful to think about fatigue and energy in terms of spoons. So if you get a certain amount of spoons of energy in the morning, that's what you've got for the day. And when you've used them all up, you won't have any more until the next morning. And that might be a helpful way to think about things if you or people around you can't really understand why you could go for a walk last Tuesday, but you can't go for a walk today. You may have had enough spoons for that walk on Tuesday and you've already used them up today. And that might help you to think about where your energy is going and hopefully make it a bit more predictable. Next slide, please, Katie. You can also think of yourself as having a daily energy budget. And I like this metaphor or way of explaining things because it helps you to think about how it's not just what you did today, but it's about what you've done on the days before. That explains why you're fatigued. So you might be able to overspend a bit every day and still just about muddle through. But if you keep on overspending and going into your overdraft, at some point that overdraft is going to get too big. And when you get your daily budget, you won't get into credit. And that would be a day when you just have to stop, a bust day. And again, that might help you to explain to friends and family why you can't do anything today, but you were able to do stuff earlier in the week. Next slide, please, Katie. I also wanted to mention the Equality Act of 2010. Anybody who's had a diagnosis of cancer is covered by this act for life. And that means that your employer is obliged to consider reasonable adjustments to help you to manage work within your energy levels. That could be things like starting later to avoid rush hour traffic, so you use less energy getting to work. It could be things like a 5-minute break every hour away from a screen. It could be a change of duties, or it could be reduced hours. It's also definitely about taking anything that you're already entitled to, like making sure you have a proper lunch break away from your desk or away from the other things that you're meant to be doing, so that you can really try and do something restorative, that plugging yourself into a charger thing, before you carry on for the rest of the day. If you would like some more information and support about this, then do get in touch with us at the Cancer Rehab Team or the Wellbeing Hub. Next slide, please, Katie. And finally, I want to talk a bit about rest, this idea of plugging yourself in and recharging your battery. Rest isn't indulgent or lazy or doing nothing. Humans aren't really capable of doing nothing. If you're sitting and appear to be doing nothing, you'll still be thinking and listening and wondering about things. And it's really essential to rest when you've got fatigue. So some people are already quite good at resting, and other people who might have been very busy and always on the go prior to having their diagnosis and treatment might find it really quite hard to rest. It's not necessarily something that we've all been taught to do or that was valued or prioritized when we were younger. So it's something to learn and something to put some effort into doing and getting into your daily schedule. Might be useful to think about the sort of things that you give yourself permission to do on holiday and allow yourself to do them now. So this is not about having to get all your chores and everything done before you allow yourself to rest. This is about little pockets of rest spread throughout the day. And it could be something that you enjoy, like sitting and listening to some music or being in the garden or looking at nature. It can also be more structured things like relaxation or mindfulness exercises. Next slide, please, Katie. Mindfulness is something that we use a fair bit in the service. And I'm just going to do a brief introduction to it now. And there will be some videos or audios that you'll be able to listen to, as well as wider resources that you can tap into if you are interested in finding out more about mindfulness. So it's about being in the present rather than worrying about the future or the past. For most of us, our bodies might be in the present, but we'll be thinking about what we have to do later or wondering about what happened and whether if we'd done something differently, something different would have happened. So our body's here, but our mind is either in the future or the past. And when we're mindful, we really pay attention to all the information our body is taking in here and now. Things we can see, things we can hear, or smell or taste, things that we don't normally pay much attention to, but they're all there if we choose to. And we also notice our thoughts. And rather than getting wrapped up in them and assuming that they're all true and that that's the way the world is, we notice how they come and go. We are not trying to make them disappear because that's not possible. But what we are trying to do is notice them. If we notice a story that keeps coming back, we can choose a time to address it. But while we're being mindful, we're just watching our thoughts and then returning to the thing that we're choosing to pay attention to in the moment. And that can really help us to make choices instead of just reacting to feeling guilty or stressed and carrying on with something that might not be helpful. Next slide, please, Katie. So I hope that's been a useful introduction to cancer-related fatigue and things that might be helpful. I'm part of the Cancer Rehab Team, and this is our email address and the phone number for our admin team up on the screen now. And the Macmillan Wellbeing Hub is over in the Dyson Centre. When you go in, if you turn to the right, that's where it is. Or you can email them or call them on the number below. Next slide, please, Katie. And finally, if you want to find out more about the Cancer Rehab Team, there's a QR code on the left of the screen that you can scan. There's also a fatigue website, which has been put together for our local Cancer Alliance, the Somerset, Wiltshire, Avon and Gloucestershire Cancer Alliance. So that fatigue website has some more information about fatigue and how to manage it, and also a link to Bath Centre for Fatigue Services, who are able to provide support for people experiencing fatigue. So if you want to investigate that further, then there's the QR code on the right. Thank you for your time. I hope that's been helpful.